Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm in this 2009 Porsche 911 Carrera 4. This is known as the 997 911 and it's been around since 2004, late 2004, and ran until 2012 when it was replaced with the 991 911. This 997 ran for about 8 years and it replaced the slightly unpopular or perhaps misunderstood 996. Before I get onto this car, I've got to announce that my online course is now live. As of 9 o'clock today, you can sign up and enroll. And it's something that I'm really proud of and passionate about. I've spent months and months working on it, and hours and hours and hours. I'll leave the link to it below in the description, but you'll basically get access to nearly 100 videos that I've created, which will help you grow your car business, or if you're not even in the car business, it will help you know where to start. The lessons that I've made cover every single topic. They cover everything from how to start, where you should base your business, the pros and cons for every location, trade plates, motor insurance, how to handle leads, how to brand your business. Everything that I could possibly think of is there. So if you're interested in growing your car sales business, or you want to get into this trade and don't know where to start, then enroll today. Hopefully you'll learn a great deal from it and won't make some of the mistakes that I made in the early days. Click on the link in the description and sign up today. Anyway, back to the 911. For a car that's remained largely unchanged for over half a century, there are a confusing amount of model names and model variants. If you're not really into 911s, as I wasn't personally, trying to remember all the model variants is a bit like trying to memorise the instruction manual for your dishwasher, and it's about as interesting. The 997 model range starts with the humble Carrera, which is rear-wheel drive, and has about 320 horsepower. The Carrera 4 is largely the same, only the 4 denotes that it's got four-wheel drive rather than just 2. And this one has the wide body, a bit like the turbo. Then you have the Carrera S, the Carrera 4S, the GTS, the GT3, the Turbo S. You see why I'm confused, can't you? Even that's not the full story, because you've got the 997.1. This one's the 997.2. You could have had it as a coupe like this one, or as a convertible. Or, if you are indecisive, you could have the Targa, which is sort of like a halfway house between the convertible and the coupe. And that's before we even get onto the options. The Porsche 911 is for pedantic people who love to make decisions. It's like the Starbucks of the car world. This isn't good enough for somebody who just wants a sports car. No, this is made for somebody who wants a venti, non-fat, wet, double shot, sugar-free, syrup-free, extra hot, extra foam, mocha choco frappuccino. I'm not a 911 hater, by the way, far from it. I totally get the appeal, but they've just never really done an awful lot for me. I've never yearned for one. I've never really wanted one. Because of the dizzying number of model variants, that gives me a bit of a problem today. Do I review this car as a 997.2 911 Carrera 4 3.8 PDK, or do I simply talk about the 997 in very general terms? I think the latter, before I make a fool of myself. Let me begin by discussing the positives. Now, there are lots of positives with the 911, almost as many as there are model variants. I love the styling. It's timeless and classy. It's flash without being flashy. It's a symbol of wealth and success without being a terrible show-off. I love the design of the wheels. I also love the wider body that you get on the Carrera 4 and the turbo. Most of all though, I love the delicacy and the simplicity of the styling. Absolutely nothing is wasted. You don't get the sense that this is a that'll-do design. The DRLs look great too. I also love the size of the 997. This isn't a big car. And so many modern cars these days are big heffalumps. They're big bloaters that are difficult to park. And this isn't. This is a nice, nimble, agile car. There she goes too. The later 991 feels much bigger and wider and chunkier than this. And in comparison, the 997 just feels very dainty. I also love the fit and finish. The quality is superb. Every single thing you touch is of the utmost quality. The carpets are plush and the leather is soft and has depth. Your first reaction when you get into a 997 might be slightly anticlimactic. It's only when you really start to study it you appreciate the attention to detail, the choice of materials and the quality stitching. The thing I love most though about the 997 is the way it handles. This is a proper driver's car. You feel everything. And I don't mean that in a bad way. This sounds quite poncy this, but you feel at one with the car. I can't believe I just said that. You feel at one with the car. I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. The more you drive it, the more you learn how to get the best out of it. It's at that point that you'll really start to enjoy it. You'll feel a connection with it that you just don't get with lots of other cars. Of course, the downside to feeling everything is the ride is a little bit bumpy. Performance-wise, it's also very quick, as you might imagine. Even though this is at the lower end of the 911 range, if you press this Sport Plus button and press this button here with a picture of some sunglasses on it, it goes like a scalded cat. This PDK gearbox is excellent too. It's a 7-speed twin clutch gearbox, but the shifts are instant. You also get some paddle shifters on the steering wheel, which are very intuitive, very quick to respond. And then once you turn off the sunglass button and put it back into normal mode, it's fairly quiet. You can just pootle around in this at sensible speeds, the sort of speeds familiar with most National Trust members, and just have a relaxing drive, hoping desperately that you'll see somebody that you knew from high school. But the moment you want to start driving like your last name's Schumacher, the 911 obliges. This is a car that's quite happy doing both. Something else I like about the 911 is the running costs. And don't laugh there, because I'm being deadly serious. They're not that expensive to run. On the motorway recently, I did about 200 miles in this car, and I averaged 32 miles per gallon, which I know it isn't a Prius. But for a 911, or for a performance car like this, I thought that was quite commendable. The road tax isn't so cheap though. You'll have to pay Rishi about £550 a year to tax it. But servicing costs aren't bad either. It genuinely won't break the bank. And the other good thing about 911s is they rarely break. If you look after them, and most people do, because most people are into the cars who buy these kinds of cars, they're pretty reliable cars. So yes, it might cost you more to run than a Ford Focus, but not as much as you might think. On to the negatives. Here are the reasons why I don't yearn after a 911. I'll probably get some stick for this in the comments section, but I think it needs to be said. Well, firstly, you'll always hear people say how usable the 911 is. Oh yeah, I just love the 911, it's such a usable sports car. Well, it doesn't have a boot. How usable's that? Not very. Yes, I know you've got one in the front, a front trunk, a frunk. But you'll soon get frunked off with using it because it's just not very user-friendly. So picture this, it's a wet, miserable Tuesday evening and it's just about to go dark. You walk back out to your 911 carrying your 2 bags for life and you want to put them in the car. This being a very usable car shouldn't be a problem, should it? Well, it is. You have to fumble around there for the catch, like a contestant on the Crystal Maze, only with more swearing. The next thing I'm not a huge fan of on the 911 is the noise. It's just a noise. They all have that famous 6-cylinder engine. This one is a 3.6. Oh, no, 3.8. See what I mean? I don't know. There are too many. I think it's a 3.8 actually. Anyway, it sounds alright, but it doesn't sound as good as a V6 F-Type or a V8 Jaguar XK. Nowhere near as good as my SL55 AMG. I know that Porsche noise might get some people all hot under the collar, but it doesn't really do an awful lot for me. In sport mode, yes, it will bark like a rabid dog, but it's not the sort of noise that makes me tingle. The next issue on my list is lack of interior space. They're quite cramped inside. I've got nowhere for my elbow, it's a bit like being in an old Defender. The seat bolsters are very hugging, to the point where they're almost suffocating. And to get your hand down the side to adjust the seat, well, you need to have the hand of olive oil. Popeye's misses. The next problem with the 911, and perhaps my biggest bugbear, the reason why I wouldn't want to use it on a daily basis, is the road noise. It's just unacceptable. You'd probably be able to tell this from my microphone, but there is a lot of road noise in this. When you're throwing this car around some country bends with your music pumping, it's not an issue. But if you go on a long road trip with this car and try and take a phone call over the Bluetooth, the other person will think that you're on a train, in a carriage with no soundproofing. Or perhaps the Flying Scotsman. Actually, I think the Flying Scotsman's quieter. Another thing I don't like about the 911 is the lack of extras. If you buy one of these cars used, unless the first owner's surname was Rothschild or Rockefeller, it will have about as many toys as an Amish family's living room on Christmas Day. So I think that's it. I think that's all the pros and all the cons, in fairly equal measure. And when all is said and done, I still kind of want one. But I don't desperately want one, and I think that's the difference. That's always been the problem with the 911 for me. I don't go on Auto Trader 5 times a day, gawping at them. It's why I don't get excited when I see one in traffic. I totally get the appeal, I just don't crave one. It's probably one of the reasons why I haven't memorised the entire lineup. In fact, I don't think anybody could, not even Rain Man. If I were buying a 911, and I've tried to think about this at length, I think I would go for a Carrera S. rear wheel drive and just a drop more power. I try and find one with some nice options on it in a good colour. Based on the comments I got on my Instagram post of this car, I know that this aqua blue over Savannah isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I like it. It's an unusual combination, but it's interesting to look at, more interesting than most. Some of the colour combinations you see on the internet though when I've been looking are pretty atrocious. Lots of them have a brown interior or a maroon paint finish, and I just think, who's going to buy that? Used prices for the 997 start at around £15,000. That's going to get you an early high mileage one. That's something else to mention about the 911. They hold the values remarkably well, which is good if you own one, but not so good if you're thinking about buying one, because they just don't look like good value. For one like this, a 2009 997-2 Carrera 4 3.8 PDK with some nice options, this will set you back about 30 grand. I'm sorry, but that just seems like too much money. For 30 grand, I think I'd rather have a Jaguar XKR. Yes, I know, probably nowhere near as good technically, but more evocative and probably nicer to live with. I honestly don't think they represent good value for money, which is a bit of a problem for me, somebody who's sat on the fence with 911s. If you're looking to buy one, you'll want to check some important things, such as service history. Now, most owners of 911s are, what's the polite word? A bit geeky. They know exactly what they're looking for, so most of them will have very good service history. I wouldn't consider buying one unless it had full Porsche history or full Porsche specialist history. You also want to make sure that it's got both sets of keys, matching tyres of a good brand, the usual stuff really, but it's even more important on a 911. If it's got the automatic PDK box, you need to make sure that it's had a service or two. But if you find a good one and look after it, you just won't lose any money. And I can't think of any other sports cars that I can say that about. So I think that summarises my thoughts on the 911. It's why I try and avoid doing reviews with 911s, because I just don't know enough about them and end up rambling about things like cup holders. Oh, I've not mentioned the cup holders, have I? It has two there, which is pretty good. So thanks once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And yeah, don't forget to check out my online course if you're interested in getting involved in the car business. I'll leave the link in the description. So yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time. Oh, Happy New Year, by the way. That was a bit remiss of me, wasn't it? Happy New Year. I hope it's better than the last. See you later.